Perhaps the most recognizable lost ski area in Alberta, Pigeon Mountain has always fascinated me. I had always wondered what was the story behind those cut runs down the mountain, and had always wondered what the ski area looked like during its operational years. Even with my best efforts, it has been a challenge to find many operational photos of Pigeon Mountain. But with all that said, I hope you do enjoy what I do have. So, let's get into this video. The history of downhill skiing on Pigeon Mountain dates back to 1961, when Pigeon Mountain Recreations Limited was formed with the goal of developing a new ski resort close to Calgary. In 1962, the group received all their permits and installed 2 Poma detachable platters. The main platter rose around 400 vertical feet and serviced the longest runs. The second Poma serviced the beginner slope by the lodge. The ski area initially boasted 4 main runs, ranging from beginner to intermediate terrain. The initial development was supposed to see 2 more Poma lifts and a double chairlift continue to rise up the mountain. Pigeon Mountain constructed a 4,200 square foot lodge built using local timber. This lodge remained the center of Pigeon Mountain's ski operation, and it still stands today. Pigeon Mountain was chosen as it provided easy access to Calgary and was outside Banff National Park. By December of 1962, Pigeon Mountain officially opened to the public. The ski area hired young Jack Bright as the general manager. When it first opened, it was touted as the next great Canadian ski resort comparable to Lake Louise. Reportedly, locals had voiced concerns over insufficient snowfall and warm winds, or Chinooks, in the winter. Management dismissed all these fears as groundless, even stating that all the prophets of doom proved to be wrong. Pigeon Mountain was truly aimed at first-time skiers. The mountain had a very fine ski instruction program and even offered a daycare with skiing lessons for very young children. This boosted the mountain's reputation as a great place to learn the sport. Pigeon Mountain's first ski season was a disaster. The mountain was only open for around 1.5 months before warm weather closed the ski resort. To combat this, Pigeon Mountain ordered 10 Larchmont snow guns for the upcoming ski season. In 1964, the ski area installed a 3rd Poma lift that ran directly beside the existing main platter. The ski area experienced a few good snow years in the 1960s, with the closing record being mid-April in 1963. Pigeon Mountain regularly drew crowds between 600 and 800 skiers on any given weekend. The Hudson Bay Company also offered coupons and free bus rides from Calgary to Pigeon Mountain. This program saw Pigeon Mountain teach huge numbers of new skiers how to ski. Jack Bright was truly an amazing ski marketer, and he was able to draw skiers from as far away as Manitoba to come ski Pigeon Mountain. Pigeon Mountain really didn't expand much throughout its early years, despite all the development plans. The resort widened new runs and cut bypasses on steeper trails, but overall, the trail layout remained mostly unchanged. In 1967, Bright left Pigeon Mountain, lured by a potential ski development near Garibaldi. Right after he left, the original Poma platter suffered a terrible malfunction when a cable on the lift flew off the pulley, launching 2 young skiers into the air. Tragically, one of them passed away. While a public inquest found that the ski area was not at fault for the accident, it put a stain on Pigeon Mountain's reputation in the local community. With Jack Bright gone, the ski area really struggled during the 1968 ski season. A warm winter caused the resort to close early and lose quite a bit of revenue. In the summer of 1969, vandals broke into the lodge, removing rental ski equipment and trashing the kitchen. This all caused Pigeon Mountain to close in 1969. While there were talks originally about a new operator for Pigeon, the ski area sat dormant for 9 years. In 1977, Calgarian George Camp purchased all assets of Pigeon Mountain and planned a complete reopening. Reportedly, all the lifts and lodge were still on the mountain, relatively undamaged. George Camp installed a newer SMI snowmaking system and resurrected the beginner Poma and one of the parallel platters. Additionally, a GMT Mueller double was installed, replacing the original Poma that suffered the malfunction. Camp intended Pigeon to become the next big learning center for Calgary. With lower ticket prices, the ski area would provide a relaxing and more affordable alternative to the bigger mountains. Pigeon Mountain only lasted for 3 seasons under George Camp, before finally closing for good after the 1980 ski season. Reportedly, the warm winters proved to be a challenge for George Camp, and the ski area struggled to make a profit. The provincial government rejecting Camp's request to build over 200 condominium units on the mountain was also a factor in the closure. As the 1988 Winter Olympics were approaching for Calgary, a new ski area site was needed to host the downhill events. Many locations were candidates, including Pigeon Mountain. While George Camp tried his best to incorporate Pigeon Mountain into the Olympics, it never happened. A few years later, he sold his lease to a company who developed around 25 cabins on the lower slopes of the mountain. The chairlift was removed and sold to Canyon Ski Resort, where it still operates. While there was a brief mention in 1998 of bringing back Pigeon Mountain for a potential Calgary 2010 Winter Olympics, that's about all that ever got mentioned of the ski area. While Pigeon Mountain gets harder and harder to see year after year, you can still make out the runs. There's obviously no interest in bringing back the twice-failed resort, but it is an interesting bit of history for the Albertan ski market. To the best of my knowledge, there are no trail maps of Pigeon Mountain that exist, unless you count this as a trail map, which I personally don't. So it will be a bit hard to tell exactly where the lifts and runs are, but I will do my best to break the trails down. Pigeon Mountain was quite small, with a 400-meter vertical drop and around 3 to 4 ski runs. There was a beginner's run with a dedicated platter lift. However, as there is no clear indication of where this lift was, I can only make an estimate. It is likely that this lift was near the base lodge, quite low down on the mountain. There seems to be 3 main trails the further up the resort you travel. From the looker's left to the right, the trails go from steeper to less steep. The double chairlift and Poma serviced all of the vertical of these runs, with 2 or 3 crossovers in between. The looker's left run was around 900 meters long and had an average slope gradient of around 20%. The steepest it ever got was 34%, which would be fairly steep for some beginners. On a trail map, this run would probably have been intermediate to advanced. The second trail is less direct and it snakes its way down a forest. It's around 950 meters long with an average slope of around 16%. However, especially around this area, this trail gets pretty steep, so there was a short cutoff avoiding the steeper section of this run. This run could have been green or blue on a trail map. Finally, the true beginner run snakes through the forest and is over 1 kilometer in length. With an average slope of 12%, this would have been the easiest top to bottom run and would have definitely been green on the trail map. It's worth noting that the chairlift would most likely have started near the base lodge, but without photos, trail maps, or aerial images, it's impossible to know for sure exactly how Pigeon Mountain skied. While Pigeon Mountain really was doomed to fail from the start, it's quite an interesting story that I'm sure many people have wondered. Every year, the ski runs grow more and more in, but they still are mostly visible. Ultimately, Alberta has better skiers to offer the beginner skier, but it's interesting to think about how Pigeon Mountain fit into the 1960 ski season, and it's also fun to think about how the mountain skied. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe. And until next time, this is Skier72.